well. Back in our recalcitrant podcast studio. It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you. Guess who's Bazak? Whichever rap video or lyric you want to throw at us to acknowledge the fact that we missed a couple of some weeks, and now we're back, and we're both very tired. Been on planes a lot in the last few days, but we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children and babies, it's the most dangerous youth baseball podcast in the entire known universe. I'm your host, Evan Morgan, Directly Baseball Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, joined as per usual by my brother, my partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy Assistant Director, Driveline Academy International Man Mystery, very tired man, joined by other very tired man, Jeremy Tactile.
I do real quick.
Yes.
Just in case you think we are biologically brothers, which happens.
Yes, which happens.
We are not biological brothers. This is chosen family here.
Yes, that's my brother by choice, not my blood. Thank you guys for joining us. We apologize for the delay. It's been holidays, and it's been ABCA, and it's been madness, but we're back.
Yes.
And both of us had some exciting travel over the ABCA weekend that we can get into in a second. Not before we do housekeeping. So, ABCA.com, code DL20. I don't know that I have enough fluid in my brain to come up with something amusing for DL20. Digestible liver 20. Get yourself 20% off, ABCA.com. Digestible liver 20. We're coming.
I was going to go destroyed luggage.
Sure.
If that gives you an indication of what I've been doing over the last.
Yeah, no, that works too. So DL20, 20% off, ABCA.com. Bats, training equipment, game bats, all the good things. They have all the things. Other piece of housekeeping, the Skills and Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual is available for pre-order right now. You can go get it. Copies will be shipping before the end of January. We approved the print proof. So we are everything is on track. And shout out to you guys that have already been purchasing. Our first run of books is already sold out. The second run of books is more than 50% sold out. So if you want in on that action in the springtime, and you wanted to get an idea of the curriculum we run, the approach, not only the what we do, but heavy on the why, we got the thing for you. And in addition, the video database, the yearly training plan, the micro and macro schedules, an example 6-week practice schedule, all the games for the Scale practice book. It's everything we got to throw at the problem.
Yeah, if you're one of the countless people who came up to probably both of us this weekend and wants to get their program closer to how we run ours, and if you're a podcast listener who agrees with most of the stuff we say, this is for you. You should get it. It has everything soup to nuts from why we do it to our YTP and practice plans and drills for how to do it. You should get this book.
And if you do that, you are going to be in good company with some people that I know that work for MLB franchises that are going to be buying this book and using it in that capacity, not to train MLB players, but for what they're doing with their youth initiatives, which is really, really cool to kind of see that stuff happen. So Driveline.com, Skills and Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual, pre-sale right now, copy shipping before the end of January. And I'm going to be hand signing thank you cards for the first 100 or 200 until my hands completely cramp up. So if you're looking for that special touch, Driveline.com, Skills and Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual. We are showing off a little bit more of the pod studio. You're not getting a chance to just look at the silver blinds. Instead, get a little bit of our accoutrement back here that's still in place. Smashies, the bazooka.
Might look similar to the old one. Starting to look a little come into view like that was the old background. Obviously much different. But.
Yeah. Do people remember the whole the bazooka factory thing? Remember?
I don't know, and this is why we need to re-put out those shirts.
Yeah, we got to do those shirts.
I know there was a it wasn't us that put out those shirts initially. But we need to now put out those shirts because we got to bring the bazooka factory.
Yeah. And not only that, but the Bazooka Factory ideology is alive and well. We have our Academy showcase coming up next Wednesday.
Nope.
Wait.
So Saturday in Arizona.
Oh, that's right.
And Monday.
Yes. Saturday
in Arizona, Monday in Washington.
You're right. For any details that I might be giving you on this particular episode, take them all with a grain of salt. Your boy spent somewhere a little bit under 12 hours on either in an airport or on a plane yesterday. You had similar adventures. So
thank you. Truly, thank you, Alaska Airlines.
Yeah, because like I don't. Of all the potential flight outcomes that you could have, I definitely don't want to have a piece of the plane come off mid-flight. Like that's kind of like the worst.
The door. I think wasn't it the door? Yeah. I mean, like, I'm glad. Like, if you gave me the options of like being on a plane when the door falls off, or pulling an all-nighter to make a 6 a.m. flight, which you only found out about at 10 p.m., I would choose the option I chose. But like, how is that my choice?
Yeah.
How are those my two options?
Yeah, it was pretty amusing to me. Like, usually in the pre-flight stuff, for the people that are in the exit rows, most everybody's kind of like tuned out. And on both of my flights yesterday, the stewardess people are they all? No, is it if you're a male stewardess?
They're all flight attendants now.
Oh, I'm sorry, flight attendant. Sure. The flight attendants were like, "Hey, take your headphones off. Please. You better listen up. We got to cover some stuff." And they're like, "You need to verbally give us a yes." Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. I mean, I would rather that they really get after it that way rather than the alternative.
Sure.
So yeah, ABCA, man, once more into the breach. I don't know about you, but it flew by.
Yeah, it felt way faster than last year. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like what. So it was the second year that Danny went with me.
Yeah.
And what we did last year, like one of the fun things we did is we just walked the floor.
Yeah.
And we probably took an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and like saw everything, which is great because you get a chance to see like the gambit of
the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like anything you want, it's all there.
Yeah, and like and everybody's got a dream for like they go to the conference and they're gonna show off their thing. And we literally it was like Saturday at 2:00. And we were like, okay, we're going to stop and get some food. And then we have to go to or I had to get Danny some food and then go to the Pizza and Beer Youth Baseball Power Hour that we were doing on Saturday. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, we'll go walk the floor. And then they start flickering the lights and start shutting everything down. I was like, okay, missed that opportunity.
Yeah. It really felt like there was just one day this year.
Yeah.
Because like Thursday, started a little later start. And like we had a lot of traffic at the booth on Thursday.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, this is a precursor, and it was. But then there wasn't it was just like one big day, and then Saturday felt pretty dead as well. Yeah,
I mean, it was the same for me because like as soon as we got there on Thursday, I had committee stuff to hop into, so I wasn't on the floor much on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday we did our like little scheduled stuff at the booth, which is kind of like, I mean, you were riding it the whole time.
Yeah.
And for those 2 days, it was it's the tough thing about the booth talks is it's not really like, okay guys, we're going to sit down and talk about X because there's a billion people that are kind of walking around checking stuff out. Nobody's really going to sit down and like have.
Right. You want to walk the floor. You don't want to sit and.
Yeah. So it went over super fast for us. But then the good thing about the other thing that Danny and I usually do is like these Gaylord hotels, like it feels, what I told Dee yesterday is like it feels almost like a Great Wolf Lodge inside of it, because it's like you have all this,
It's like a little city.
Yeah, it's like a little city, and they have themes and games and stuff. So because our flight got canceled and I couldn't rouse him from sleep at 6:00 in the morning to catch a later flight, we had all the time in the world to kill to kind of like walk around the facility, which was cool. And of course, he's super annoyed because there was still stuff going on Sunday. I think a lot of people pieced out by that point, but they still have stuff. And then, I'm walking around and somebody will see that I've got like a driveline thing on the shirt. Like, oh, so, I find myself talking to just, random high school coaches about what we do at driveline. And Danny's like, I've heard you give this talk like 20,000 times, but he was a trooper for it.
Give it himself. Let's go. Come on, Danny.
That's actually what I should do. I need to put him on the spot, see if I can hit my general talking points of how high school coaches should generally just start with like an arm care thing first and build it from there, and not worry about anything like too exotic right off the bat, because you're much better off going in just like meat and potato stuff, I think, rather than biting off too much and like year one implementation.
Yep, 100%.
I always go back to like anybody that really wants to go like trip in the Wayback Machine. The Indiana Chargers blog article on the Driveline blog from like 2015, 2016 maybe, like it was all about like initial team implementation. Shout out to Joel Bishler. He's the man. But yeah, no, the committee stuff on Thursday was good. I think the best part about that is that we had the summit last year in Virginia, and we kind of just talked about like what's going on, a big meeting of the minds type of thing about people that have some stakeholders in youth baseball. This last year, which we talked about a couple episodes ago in Kansas City, now we're kind of like talking about action and like what are the next steps. So like, okay, we don't want this committee to function just like we're going to get together every 12 months. Oh, let's everybody bitch and commiserate about what's wrong, and then we're just going to like leave and then wash and repeat like literally 12 months later. So this year we were able to talk both in the closed meeting and then the open one about some of the next steps we're trying to take. And I think the biggest thing to me is this idea of like trying to create curriculum for facilitators and like literally not calling them coaches at this like 3 through like 7-year-old level.
Yeah.
Because the moment that like, and I say this because it's what I did.
Yeah.
I had a pulse and I raised my hand and I was like, hey, I'll coach. And they're like, okay, well now you got to be the coach. And the moment that kind of label gets put on people, sometimes you see a lot of behavior that
the clipboard just like comes into your hand.
Yeah. Like the
it just appears out of thin air.
Yeah, the clicker just kind of like appears on your neck, which is fine. But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8-year-olds might not necessarily need that.
Yep, and that's a takeaway with the book too, right? And like you just mentioned it, but there's so much in that book. I promise you, if you haven't done any of it and try to do all of it at once, it's not going to work. You need to start slow and do a little bit at a time and progress from there.
Yeah.
And like the book has a lot of really good information on how to do that. But like, if you try to do too much too fast, it's just not going to work in any of these situations.
Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to hammer so much of like the why stuff, because if you understand the why, then you can apply it without looking at some of the games. So you can just create your own games relative to your kids, your needs, your environment, because you understand the why, you understand the process of adaptation, you understand super compensation, you understand how you don't want to overwork the kids, like you understand the core principles. Then you're just off to the racetrack.
Right.
But anyways, that part of the committee stuff was really, really positive. Shout out to Taylor of Perfect Game, who was kind enough to give me like the time warning. Like I was doing stand up on stage when I was like ranting the open thing. He's like, all right, dial it down a little bit. I need that.
Play good music.
Yeah. He played me off. It was good. And I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to 2 people in particular who all weekend were incredibly generous in the things that they said about what we're doing with Academy and about the book. It's like an educational thing. And that's Rob Honey and Jordan Baltimore. I owe those dudes so much for stumping, publicly in their roles, in their capacity to influence. Jordan was on stage on Saturday morning, crushed it. And like in his talk was...
For those of you who don't know who Jordan and Rob are.
Yeah, so Jordan was kind enough in his talk on Saturday to even shout me out, shout out what we're doing with the book. So Rob Honey, high school baseball coach in Virginia, head of the Northern Virginia Travel Baseball League, ABCA board member and chair of the ABCA Youth Committee. And since I've met Rob through Ryan Brownlee, also exemplary human being, flywheel at the center of like a lot of stuff that happens at ABCA, Rob has just been incredibly generous about helping us kind of get this out. And it's not because Rob is running a bunch of like driveline stuff on his teams. It's, I think, because he sees the same thing that we see, which is that we want to improve youth baseball. And then Jordan Baltimore, again, my brother by choice, not by blood. Jordan runs a company called New York Empire that is in kind of like in the heart of Manhattan. And they run training and teams and leagues, and they even do stuff for like the little teen kids that we don't do. One of the things that Jordan had in his presentation was he had a company called, oh my gosh, it's Red. Oh no, my brain, not enough fluid. It's not Red Letter Media, but that's what is stuck in my head because that's like a company that does YouTube videos. Shout out to anybody who watches those. My brother Sam sends me Red Letter Media stuff all the time. It is Strategy Red. So Strategy Red is a media company that does a lot of content and produces it, and they do phenomenal work. They shot a video of Jordan's. It was like really, really young kids, like 7 and 8 year old, like their championship last fall. And he played that video at the end of his talk on Saturday. And it's just like electric. Like it's been a while since I've seen like 7 and 8s, and and it's just the best, man. You start to see like some of the baseball moves start to come out. They go from being like really, really green to like the first, like it's starting to ramp in. And they're also learning how to play the game. They're just like jazzed up about literally everything that happens. And Empire does a great job where it's like it was their championship game, but they're rewarding all these kids. So Strategy Red, he played their video. Anyways, Jordan has done more than I could ever ask to help us like promote the book. And one of the things we did at ABCA was on Friday night we did like a private dinner and drinks thing. So in partnership with Strategy Red and Uplift Labs and League Apps, to have those three partners kind of come to the table and allow us to kind of invite, it was supposed to be 50 some odd people. And hey, you're gonna come in, we got drinks and dinner for you, which costs money, like it's not free, and listen to me do kind of my speech and then Jordan do his and then just like some open Q&A. And it was supposed to go from 7 to 9. I think almost everybody there stayed until 10, 10:30 or something like that. And we ended up having somewhere north of like, I think 70 people in and out. And it was electric. I did a little bit of kind of like dinner speech about where things are in terms of what we can see in youth baseball. I'm sure you guys have heard me say this stuff ad nauseum, but like the points that I hit, just to kind of recap, is like the 20% participant loss that was kind of covered in the last Aspen Institute project play data, the continual issues we've got with retention, where somewhere between like 1.6 to 1.8 million kids every single year are quitting baseball right around the same time that the fields get larger in size. Gee, I wonder why. And then also what I was talking about is some of the data about like the UCL reconstruction stuff, about injury, which is covered in the book. There was a large scale study ran from 2003 to 2014. And one of the things that they found in that period of time was the rate of UCL reconstruction for kids 11 through 15. So your pre-high school kids went up 669% just during that time period. And kind of the logical, like the next question is, well, that's like 10-year-old data. Where are we now? No one's, as far as I'm aware, has replicated a study of that size yet. If you're aware, hit my DMs. But the thing that we know since 2014 is that the volume of games being played has increased exponentially. So I used some numbers from one of like the large tournament providers who, between 2014 to 2022, had a 6,300% increase in the volume of events that they held. They're only increasing those events if they have teams to fill them. And I think it's logical to conclude that if there are that many more games being played, then some of the same trend issues you would see about rate of UCL reconstructions for younger kids are probably continuing to go up as well. And then the other thing that I kind of substantiated this whole thing with was the data that Aspen Institute puts out, or that they collected about the training the coaches get. And that was, it's really, really brutal. They didn't break it down by sport, but what they did kind of substantiate is that more than 2/3 of coaches lack, oh man, this hurts, training on any like sport-specific tactics, anything about like general physical kind of like athletic development or motivational. Well, right.
You messed up the word. It's not a or.
I'm sorry. It's and.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So so more than in what Aspen Institute studied, more than 2/3 of all coaches lack all three of those things.
It would still be bad if 2/3 lacked one of those three, but like the fact that it's all three.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm aware that I am prone to hyperbole. I'm aware that I will make this thing sound pretty dramatic. However, when you combine those things, massive participation loss disproportionately compared to any other sport, massive retention issues, and like really bad trends about coach training, and you look at all three of those things together, and it's like, well, of course.
Yeah.
Like all.
How could you expect anything? Right. The system is designed to get every system is designed to get the results.
Perfectly designed to get the results of the kid. Edward Deming. So I did, kind of that talk, and then the thing that I wanted to talk about is just, when I started coaching, I was not a good coach, and I wasn't trying to be a dick, right? I was just coaching the way that I was coached, and I think. I truly think that for like a lot of people that have issues conducting a positive, engaging, emotionally resolved experience for kids when they're coaching, it's because you hurt people.
Right.
Like you're just doing the same thing that was done to you. And then from there, read the prologue to the book, which is all about, when I decided that I needed to do something different. On a game that my son played and I coached the same day that my grandmother passed away. And I, before the dinner thing, I'm like pacing up and down and I'm reading my speech over and over and over because I was terrified I was just going to get like so choked up I couldn't even get through it.
I had the Kleenex in my pocket, and I told Danny, because Danny's sitting next to me.
Yeah.
If it happens, here's the Kleenex. You got to run it up to it.
Yeah.
Didn't happen though.
No, I got close. I managed to get through it. I did actually stop before the whole thing happened, and I was like to D because the story involves a game that he played.
Right.
Did we talk about this last week? I honestly can't remember. Yeah.
Last week.
Well, yeah, last week was like
last
3 weeks ago. So, anyways, if I did tell this story and I am just like doing the thing that my father did, which is I repeat stories all the time, my apologies.
Is it the Geico commercials?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. We can't stop you from turning into your parents.
Yeah. Well, that's happening.
Yeah.
But the short version is that my grandfather passed away in December. Danny was born in January 2009. He was named after my grandfather. So Danny, my son, didn't get a lot of time with Daniel, my grandfather. And my grandfather was very, very instrumental in raising me. But for the next 7 years, we stayed super close to my grandma. And she went in on a Thursday for a procedure. Some stuff went sideways. And we got the news on Thursday, either Thursday or Friday, that she probably wasn't going to have a lot of time. And I told Dee, my wife and I got the kids together, kind of told them what was going on. It was just like, hey man, we don't need to go play on Saturday. Like, who cares? It's not a thing. And with all the conviction that his 8-year-old self could muster, he was like, well, Grandma wouldn't want me to play, so we went to go play. And he's just, and so I tell all my families, I'm like, look, here's what's going on. I'm going to be a mess. So just, I'm going to, compose myself as best as I can. But, the odds that I'm going to be like, crying under my hoodie during this game are like very high. So we started playing, and, D, I think was 8 playing AAA, so largely playing against like 9s and 10s and some 11s. And he's just like complete hair on fire. He's just like, he's a man possessed. And I know that sounds preposterous to say because he's 8, but it's, it's what I saw. So then he has his last AB of the game, and he hits a hard liner at this kid, Jacob, that I still know. And Jacob, which is no mean feat for like AAA Little League Baseball, gloves it, throws a dot across the diamond, like just, and got him out. And I happened to be getting video of him in the AB and then running up the line on first base, and our team was on first, on coaching first, we're all in the 1B dugout. And I was getting that video for, I think I was getting it for my mom. I wanted to kind of show her how Danny was playing that day. And later that night at the hospital, when I was looking at the video, I'm watching it, it's like D's coming up the line, and it was just carved on his face, like pain, And in the moment, it's like, I don't, he's 8, so I don't know if he thinks he's like disappointing his grandmother because he didn't go 4 for 4 on the day. Even though I told him beforehand, you can go 0 for 4 and grandma's gonna be happy. I don't know if, it's because, well, now the game is going to end, and that means we have to come back to deal with all this stuff. But it was when I kind of saw that look on his face, I was like, man, there's no amount of pressure that I can put on him that's going to be more. I'm only doubling down on the pressure he's already putting on himself. And that was when I started to realize that I needed to change. So did that, and then was able to finish that story. Jordan was able to kind of jump in and talk about some of the ways to kind of take these ideas and then apply them. And it's great if you have tech, right? And there's also ways you can apply the same concepts. If you understand the why, devoid of tech. Like a lot of those games, from the Skills to Scale practice book that are now in the training manual, were games that we came up with on a dirt field with zero tech. Like dirt fields in shoreline. I had like one blast sensor or one ZEP sensor or God knows whatever it was. And you can still drive skill with just a piece of paper and a pen, depending on the environment you create and the stuff you incentivize. That Friday night dinner, I think, couldn't have gone any better. But then by the time Saturday rolled around, it was like, man, Saturday hit. It's 2 o'clock, the show's over. And then so we did the pizza and beer thing, and I think by Saturday night at 4 o'clock, everybody was pretty fried, including us.
Yeah.
But altogether, I think a really good ABCA. I still, once again, kick myself because there's more of like the clinics that I want to be able to get to. There's more of like the talks that I want to get to, and just work gets in the way.
Yeah, it's always what it is.
Yeah.
And it's, you can go back and watch them. They're all like video recorded, and that's just kind of what I tell myself. That's what I have to do. Because
I know. And that's the thing. If you're listening to this show and you're not an ABCA member, it's probably the best $75 you're going to spend.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's not if you just take advantage of some of the ancillary perks, like the rental car rate, which is pretty like hilarious. The discount that you get there, it's literally going to save you hundreds, perhaps thousands of dollars, depending on how you use it. Rob Honey at one point was talking about it back in the day. You would get access to the video library in the form of VHS tapes that you had to pay for in addition. Now, $75, you get access to everything. And I think you get access to like every other convention that's ever happened, period. Like that amount of resource for $75 is just, it's phenomenal. I know Rob is working on this like ABCA ambassador program. I'm happily inclined to just like tell him that we'll do that and just have like a code that like our Academy listeners or like the Academy podcast listeners could do.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just one of those ways that, ABCA is in a pretty great position to play Switzerland, where providing training materials for coaches and not necessarily being affiliated with the leagues of those coaches puts them in a position where it's like, look, if we're going to put something out, it's just going to be because it represents what ABCA thinks to be good.
Right.
There's no real agenda there other than improve the game, which is the thing that we're trying to do. In our own little world. So if you're not an ABCA member, abca.org, go check it out. $75.
Which the one of my bigger takeaways. I don't know if it was takeaway necessarily, but shout out Dave Navarre. But talking to him, we sound really rational when we talk about these things on the podcast.
Yeah.
So it can kind of maybe cloud the fact that. This is heretical. Like the things we're saying in this space is heretical, makes us seem slightly crazy when we go out there, right? Like when we now it's a little bit different. Like I remember going out to games last summer and we were no longer the only ones throwing plows.
Right.
And we're no longer the only ones doing J-bands.
Right.
That wasn't the case. That did not used to be the case.
Yep.
We showed up and we were the nut jobs trying to find somewhere to throw plows into, throwing them off trees if we had to. Whatever the case may be, and now every team's got a little station set up, or not every team, but like a good amount of teams. We fully understand we may look crazy And like you, listener, wherever you are, it's small town. There's 3 teams, 4 teams. The other 3 teams are doing it the way they've always done it. They're bunting. You're trying to do it a different way. And you're getting your butt kicked by these teams. Yep. Because it's 9-10 baseball. They're gamifying it in the wrong way. And you're trying to do long-term development. And you look like a crazy guy. Not them, you do. And like, just know that we are also crazy. Right? Like this is a thing that we know and that we embrace. And you can't, like, in a few years, you won't be the crazy one. Everybody who's like an early adopter always seems like crazy. Yeah. And like, you've got to know if what we're saying sounds rational, sounds logical, because I think it sounds rational.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So, like, if you agree with us and you think that, you have to know that you're right. Yeah. And you have to be willing to be seen as the crazy guy for hopefully a short amount of time, because hopefully it doesn't take long for everybody else to adopt that. Sure. But like, if you believe in this, if you're convicted, you got to be willing to seem like the crazy guy for as long as it takes for everybody else to realize it. Yeah. And I wish I had a magic wand and I could tell you it'll happen really quick. Some areas, and I would say probably especially the smaller, more rural you get, where there's like fewer teams, the harder it's going to be to do this and get buy-in and continue to get the kids to come back and want to play for you or on your team or whatever it might be, because they're not necessarily seeing the results right away. Just know that like we are with you, and like that was one of my bigger takeaways, was like people think that we shouldn't be seen as crazy. And like I get that, because I don't think we're crazy, but also like that is just the role we have to play right now. Like we don't have a choice. We're trying to disrupt an industry that is much larger than us, that has been around for a very long time. These things don't happen in 1, 2, or maybe even like 5 years. Like we are playing the long game, just like the kids are here. That like we know it works. We've proven it at every level of baseball. The youth might be the level that takes us the longest to really get that true foothold and prove it to enough people. And like the quicker we can get ABCA to help us get these resources out there to train coaches and really get that spread and disseminated, the faster that flywheel will turn, and the sooner we won't be seen as crazy people. But I'm pretty confident that we'll just find something else to be seen as crazy people about, because that's what we do. Yeah. But like, you, dear listener, whether you're David Barr in North Carolina or South Carolina? North Carolina, right? North Carolina. You're in Asheville. I don't remember which Carolina. I think it's North Carolina. Like, yeah, we get it. You're crazy. Like, if you ever feel like I am too crazy, you can go back and listen to the podcast. I threw my number out on one of them. People forget. Call me. Like, email in. Let us know. Like, we are here to tell you that you are a little crazy, and that's okay. That's like a good thing. It's better to be crazy and want to make kids better than be not crazy and just do the same thing we've done that has led us directly to the point where we have to have this youth baseball bummer power hour, and we get 70 people in a room, and I'm looking around the room, and everyone is just nodding along like, yeah, this is great. And then it hit me that like, this is a good amount of people. It's a bigger ballroom. The percentage of baseball coaches, youth baseball coaches represented in this country in that room, we are so infinitesimal that like it would like, I'm sitting there like, hey, we got something here. It's gonna take a while. Like we have to get more than the 70 people in that room involved, and it's gonna take a while for you to not be crazy.
Yes, and you to put that into context, right? One of the things Rob Honey was talking about is that if based on the total number of kids playing baseball, and this is like predominantly youth, like we represent the largest sector of the total number of bodies. There should be somewhere around 1.33 repeating million baseball coaches in the United States. There are 15,000 ABCA members. Yep. So we got a ways to go.
And again, I'll pull Dave into this again, but he knows, he said it, and I'm pretty sure it's North Carolina. Although you'll correct me if it's not. But he in his area, he knows 2% of of the ABCA registered coaches. So even those 15,000 that are registered as ABCA coaches, the percentage of those guys that show up at ABCA convention and actually like buy into this and aren't maybe just doing it for the rental card discounts or whatever you get or whatever, is even smaller.
Yep.
So like it's way too small for a percentage of our ABCA members. And then of that percentage, we still don't have enough of a foothold with that percentage of coaches. So, and we're just talking about youth, not even like high school or college or anything like that. So, yep, you are crazy. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because we are too. So just let us know. And if you ever need someone to vent to because you feel like you're the only crazy person out there, there are a lot of crazy people out there that are happy to have that conversation with you and it makes you feel a little bit less crazy.
Yeah, I remember, I think Bodie, a couple of years ago, one of our audience was talking about like this, something, I can't even remember what the event was, but he was like, we're at the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
Relative to Pro Bowl.
Right.
Because we had kind of moved past this point where, our guys are going to have to throw plyos in the shower, right? Or get their workout equipment confiscated by their club, which pretty sure is like a federal mail violation. Like you can't do that, but I don't know. Anyways, we're definitely not at the end of the beginning on the youth timeline.
We're at the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah, we 100% are. So 6 years ago when I had kids throwing plyos and doing bands on a little league field, that was like prehistory.
Yeah.
That was prehistory, and that 6 years feels like 16 years.
Yeah.
In terms of like what's transpired since then, and a lot of the behavior that's exhibited by people that aren't on the crazy side of things still remains very conventional.
Right.
And I think some of that isn't even. I think sometimes it's not even like malice or apathy. It's just we're doing something that's very unconventional relative to what's been done before. You don't even know. You don't know what you don't know.
Right. And it takes someone willing, or not someone, but a lot of people willing to be crazy to adopt it early.
Yep.
Like it's, we talk about like parents with safe and dangerous with their kids.
Yep.
It's really safe to wait until, to see something and be like, that's interesting, but I'm going to wait until more people do it. Because I don't want to be like the guy standing there alone. You're never alone. Like, we're in this with you. You got crazy people, friends all over the country. Might be hard to find them locally, but the internet is a great place. And you can find as many crazy people as you want in all sorts of things with the internet.
Yes.
But you can go look at my history. Within the last 10 years, a major league employer of mine, it was bad to throw plyos. I watched players throw them in the shower. I watched them hide the fact that they were doing these things from their coaches. Within 5 years of that happening, all of these teams are now buying massive sets of plyos for their players. So that was 5 years. We haven't even been doing a drive on academy for 5 years.
Right. Not even yet.
So these things take time, and the more crazy people that are willing to be early adopters and go against the grain and be willing to, again, I'm positive you are not wrong, but some of these times you got to be willing to be wrong to be an early adopter on something. I don't remember who made this analogy, but people thought iPhones were crazy and Apple was crazy when everyone had Blackberries. And if you were one of those first people to make the move over to iPhone from a BlackBerry, there's no keyboard. There's no keyboard on this phone. What am I,
Yeah.
Those people look nuts now.
Right, and it was. I remember that conversation because it was like, well, you're just not going to be as productive, right? The BlackBerry is the tool for the productive person.
I don't remember that conversation. I was too young.
Very old. But I was, team sidekick over here.
Yeah,
Shout out to
there you go.
anybody that remembers
I had a sidekick. Yeah.
The sidekick was perhaps my favorite cell phone ever.
Yeah, it was great. It was
there's just nothing
also
more satisfying.
indestructible.
Yeah.
Indestructible.
And you flip that screen out.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah. Now we're really playing to our demographic.
Yeah, we're just at the beginning of the beginning still. And, I think about some of the stuff that I've heard, even from our kids, about how other kids chirp them about playing for Driveline. And it's bet.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Sure.
Yeah. And, I was talking to, again, I'm not going to name any organizations or, throw anybody under the bus in schools. But talking to a group of minor league coaches who work for multiple organizations, kids coming out of Power 5 schools who have all of the technology. They have these, SEC schools, these palaces of potential player development, that they have all the tech possible. They buy equipment from us. You can do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Kids getting drafted, not having zero idea how to read a break chart on TrackMan. Right? You've been there for multiple years using a TrackMan, throwing bullpens on a TrackMan, having games on a TrackMan, and you've never seen a break chart. I have 14-year-olds who can read a break chart.
Right.
And is it cool for the 14-year-old to go to school the next day and be like, my vertical break is my vertical breaking, Chris? Like, how cool? No, their friends are going to look at them like they're crazy. Yeah. But we are playing the long game. Yep. They're going to get to, they're going to go to college and they're already going to have a leg up. Whether that means they're going to play college baseball or, I don't know, maybe be a student manager of the team that helps them digest and analyze the TrackMan data. Yeah. They are already leaps and bounds ahead of where, some minor league coaches are. But some guys that are getting drafted in the first multiple rounds have more to learn about how to develop than our kids do. Yeah. And that's kind of mind-boggling that we are that far ahead of a lot of these people, but
And and there's the other side of it too. I was talking to Anthony Villa, who's a hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization, and he had 3 of his other guys that are with him that are also board coaches. And Anthony, I've known since 2018 or 2019 when he was still playing with the Sox. What's that?
Jalen Ferguson.
No. I've known Anthony for a while, and so we're just catching up. What's going on with the academy teams, yada yada. Telling them about our 90 mile an hour EV Army initiative. And when I talk to pro coaches, they're like that's tight. Mm-hmm. They with that type of an org that's made a commitment to getting better, right? And simultaneously, if I posted about that on the Northwest Travel Ball forums, there are going to be dad coaches who I know exactly what it's going to say. It's going to be does that matter when you're trying to hit the game? This game is about getting hits. Right. This game is about getting hits. And I'll shout out my brother Jordan again. In his talk, he was talking about this idea that the reason that inputs and outputs are so incredibly critical to monitor is because that's the stuff that you can control. You can't control outcomes. And it's when you have somebody break down the idea like that, the great part is I think you have a tool to throw that back at that dad coach. It's hey, game changer average, that's batting average, that's the thing to pay attention to. Really? Because you can't control that. Right. You cannot. Right.
Well, unless you're doing the game changer and all these errors are counting as hits, Yeah. As Jordan said, a kid went 9 for 4, right?
Sure.
4 at bats, 9 hits.
That's a legit point. But it's, I'm talking to Anthony Villa, and you're talking about Jackson Holiday, and some of the. You go to Holiday Hacks, right? You go to their social, you can see the stuff that they're using, you can see the way that they're training, and it's not the thing that you might think. You go, okay, well, Matt Holiday was older player, therefore I'm just going to kind of prescribe that kid to be training in a way that might be more widely acceptable in 1995 than 2025. And it's not that. And allegedly, somebody actually gave a talk at ABCA. It was well, you look at that kid, his dad's a big leaguer, he's training him on the old school stuff. And it's are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure? Because smash factor balls and skinny bats and long bats and short bats and trying to maximize exit velocity and training in a competitive environment and not doing 50 mile an hour middle BP, that sounds a lot more like 2024 than it does 1994. Yeah. Or talking to TJ Antone, again, another guy that I met back in 18 or 19, throws hundos for the Reds. Guy's a dude. And I'm talking about what I've done, what we did with the book and the stuff that we advocate for. And he's like, man, I should write a book. And I'm like, you should write a book, and you should talk about like recovery from injury and workload. I don't know that TJ's going to write that book. TJ's job this next year is going to be like, go get outs. Yeah, he's going to be out there getting punchies at the MLB level. So that might not be.
But the fact that we have someone working with youth kids who is currently punching dudes in the bigs, is huge.
Yeah, and
we need more TJs.
Yeah, and again, it's another way to kind of approach the same thing is that we have conversations with some of our own parents sometimes about how we train and why. Simultaneously, I'm pretty sure we have sent either our 6th or 7th academy coach to MLB.
Yeah,
like
to pro.
I'm sorry, to pro ball. You're right. And that's. Look, when was the last time that an MLB org hired a dad coach of a travel ball team? Okay.
You can wait as long as you want. You're not going to get an answer there.
Okay. So let's try to like resolve the logical conflict here. We don't optimize for winning. We optimize for development. We don't take the game theory optimal approach to win at any level. And the way that we want to win is through like 3 pretty specific things. We want to hit the ball harder than you do. We want to throw the ball harder than you do. We want to play good, foundational, tactical play behind that.
I would
athletes.
I would say those are the 3 for us. We want to hit it harder. We want to throw it harder, and we want to be a better athlete.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
that 4th part is going to come with repetition.
Right.
You don't need to have that 4th part down when you are 13, 14, 15.
And you can't.
You can't.
Right. No, you're right. You're 100%
That's something you will learn as you go, and it is not important to youth baseball.
Right. So, those are our pillars, right? And that's the way that our whole organization, that's what it revolves around. And we deal with parents who have a challenging decision to make where they don't live on this side of things, right? They don't work in professional baseball. They don't work in baseball, period. They have a child that wants to play baseball, and they want that kid to be as best as they can. So I think a lot of times it's this very keeping up with the Joneses. You follow the conventional wisdom about what's going to work and what isn't. But then nobody ever ends up being very good. Yep. Nobody ends up like really getting to the truth of how good they could be. And then we just kind of like hold our hands up at the end of the day and go like, well, I had this kid who was incredibly passionate about baseball and wanted to get the most out of this game as possible. And then they quit because they're not good enough sometime between the ages of like 13, 16 or 13, 17 or whatever. And nobody does the challenging thing of kind of starting to ask questions about why.
Yeah.
So while that's all happening, we have coaches that are working with our kids on this developmental paradigm around those 3 principles. They're doing a really good job. They're getting opportunities to go expand that work in professional baseball. And we're getting chirped over here.
And we're getting chirped.
And again, it's the beginning of the beginning.
Yep.
It's totally natural that that's going to happen. And I know that you and I have our ideas of like some of the dominoes are going to start to fall to change that idea. And I'm excited to see, like, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. If you, like, I get, like I said, 10 minutes ago or whatever, I get, me personally, I don't get that. That's why I work at the company I work at. I can understand and sympathize with the line of thinking of, like, I don't want to be first. I don't want to be a guinea pig. I want other people to prove it first. I do sympathize with that in a lot of ways, especially when everybody on your block is not doing it that way. You are intentionally having to be different, and it might mean not playing games on the weekend where they're all playing games and what. Like I understand that line of thinking. Time is a thing you can't get back.
Yeah.
If you are undersized and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and you're waiting for more people to adopt what we're doing before you fully jump in, you have lost multiple years. And then if you come to us when you're 17 and you're undersized, you're underdeveloped, not an athlete, there is only so much we can do once you hit that age.
You're running out of time.
You ran out of time.
Yeah.
It's not you're running. You have now ran out of time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot about, and I know he listens to the podcast, so I will say his name, Lucas McGraw.
Dude, I was just.
I think a lot about it because you said kids are quitting at that. That kid stinks at 13.
Yeah.
He stunk up the joint. Like first year, really playing baseball, and obviously he also didn't. It didn't help that he broke his arm early in the year.
Yeah.
So he never really played baseball. Comes here with a broken arm. He was a really bad baseball player. He was a supremely talented athlete.
Yeah.
We saw it in all the athletic testing across the board. A freak athlete. A really crappy baseball player. Letting that kid, giving him every opportunity to fail and look like a doofus on the field as we lose a bunch of games has led to me having a pretty good 15U catcher who's throwing balls upper sevens and hitting balls low eights, middle eights. Yep. And the sky is the limit for that kid. Yep. And that's a kid that me earlier in my coaching career, honestly, may not have, if I didn't have the tools I had to test him athletically and realize what I had, may have let that kid walk away by saying, you're going to be on the bench. You're going to really heavily play on the bench because you don't have the skill necessary to like really compete in this game. And I wouldn't ever give him the chance to develop that skill.
Yeah. And
now he's a beast.
Yep.
And it was something else that we, had talked about in that the input, output, outcome discussion. You have to give these kids the chance to fail while rewarding the outputs as much as you possibly can, because otherwise we are going to lose kids who, it was said that thing like, this game really sucks if you're not good at it. There are other sports you can play, whether it's basketball or football or soccer, where there is the opportunity for a kid who is less skilled to kind of stand there, go to the corner, rebound. There are ways you can get these kids involved in the game.
Yeah, you participate.
Right, where the game doesn't suck. Baseball is unfortunately a sport that if you aren't good at hitting, it sucks. If you aren't good at throwing, it sucks. You don't have the ability to not fail almost all the time you're doing it. And those kids are going to leave this game. So if we don't really focus on hitting and throwing, the two things that make this game suck less when you are that age, we are focusing on totally the wrong things. And that kid was a kid that all we did was focus on hitting and throwing. He got way better at hitting. He got way better at throwing. He did not get better at playing baseball.
Right.
But now he's better at hitting and throwing. So now he's going to get more opportunities in the game because he throws it harder and he hits it harder. And what happens with more opportunities in the game? You learn more about how to play the game, how to fail. This is a kid who didn't know how to play baseball 2.5 years ago and is now a catcher.
Right.
With a headsy position on the field where you have to understand things all the time. I get questions of where should I be? What should I do? Yeah, that's how you learn how to do that piece. Yeah. You'll never learn how to do that piece if you don't get the first part down of hitting it hard enough and throwing it hard enough for this game not to suck and be miserable for you as a player. Because nobody will argue that it's not a fun game to play if you can't make contact and you are just going up to strike.
I think there are a lot of people that don't even realize that composition of a player can be possible. Mm-hmm. That you could be a really, really good athlete and a really bad baseball player. Yeah. And not to shine a light on Lucas in some sort of negative way. I think it's the exact opposite.
Oh, 100%.
And again, the point that we're trying to illustrate is that there's a reason why the funnel needs to stay wide at these young ages. And the terrifying data about the way that our game is trending would suggest that we're losing these kids already.
Oh yeah,
right? So
have been for a long time.
So if we lost 1.6 million kids last year that are never going to have another competitive experience on a field because they either decided to quit because they weren't competitive or someone told them to quit because those kids represented too much risk, how many Lucas McGraws did we lose?
Way too many.
And that's just a net loss for the game, man. Like that's not good. And I'm not saying that every one of those kids is going to go play professional baseball and end up in the Hall. I'm not saying all of those kids are going to go play D1 and win the Golden Spikes. But if more of them play, then it, like, rising tide raises all ships, changes the competitive level of what high school baseball even looks like. I mean, if you get 10% more of those kids.
If you get 1% more of those kids.
Yeah, man. And so the reason, why we, I think the reason why we highlight, the youth baseball bumper power hour, the fact that this is a negative issue that we need to be dealing with is because if we accept that that's really what's happening, and then it's bad, and it needs to be fixed, we'll consider the opportunity if we start to fix it. Like we start to make these inroads. If you start to have 12 under baseball actually revolve around stuff that's going to help kids stay competitive for longer. You're changing the foundation of what these kids look like when they show up on the 50-70 field, when they show up at 54-80, when they show up at 60-90. From that point, who knows? Who knows what it looks like? But I don't think it's bad. There's no way that doesn't have a net positive impact on the game.
Correct.
And I understand. Boy, I should think about how to politically correct say this. I understand the very, base play ball. You just want kids to play. Sure, I get that. I understand that, the approach, I think, in a certain place needs to just be, expose them to the funnest parts of the game. And I think that our approach actually exemplifies that almost more than almost anybody else's.
Yeah.
Because all we're saying is, if it's true that the MLB Play Ball initiative is designed to just help kids see that baseball can be fun, why does it directionally need to change before you're competing for a high school roster spot? Why should fun not be the focus from 6 to 16?
Right.
Because I think that's the presumption, right? So we're going to do play ball as an exposure event. And then at some point along that path, it needs to get serious.
Right.
Okay, look, hitting and throwing is the funnest stuff you do on the field.
Mm-hmm.
If we do more of those fun things, you're going to be better at those things. And knowing that the field dimensions are going to change drastically and significantly, then maybe you should just have that be the entirety of the approach. Right? How is... I don't know. Development.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think being able to talk to the TJ Antones of the world that they get it, to talk to oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the swing man on Instagram, who's kind enough to kind of come to the dinner thing, ask some really good questions that night. You get it, man.
Yeah.
Sport revolves around hitting and throwing.
Yep.
If you have a little bit more of our chips on that side of the table, the game's more engaging, and you're set up for success over the long term in a better place. It's not rocket science.
Yep. And if we've put several coaches in pro ball coaching roles who are working with 12-year-olds.
That's insane, right? That's insane.
Yes.
Dylan Hawley is going to be working for the Minnesota Twins.
Yep.
Dylan, when he started with me, was coaching an 11U team with Cade Johnson, and that team was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan was a dog, knew the system, worked his tail off, managed projects, understands our approach to player development and systems intimately, and I think he can teach an 11-year-old how to do a pivot pick.
Mm-hmm.
You think he's not going to go dominate down in the DR? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
If you're not going to listen, and I'm preaching to the choir. These people are all listening to us. But like, if your favorite dad travel ball coach is not going to listen to us, you would think he would listen to pro orgs who are hiring guys that we have trained to be coaches.
They're teaching kids.
Or a dude punching triple digits.
Sure.
Punching dudes out with triple digits in the face. Like these, like, where, and I know we're not in the best place in society with experts and like the want to disagree with experts and like think that you know more than an expert. But
I did my own research / watched a YouTube video.
Correct. Like you don't. Yeah. Right? Like at the end, you do not know more than experts at the end of the day. And like if you think you do, that's totally fine. We don't need your money to train your kid. Yep. You're clearly the expert. You know way more than we do. You do it. You do it yourself.
Good luck.
Right. And like if your kid can't do a push-up or can't hit a ball out of the infield, you have only yourself to blame. That way you now can't blame. I mean, like in reality, we're still going to get blamed for that because everybody else was training the wrong thing. And that's why my kid, whatever. But like the experts are telling you something. And I'm not like we are both experts, but I'm not even talking about us. I'm talking about the pro organizations who are hiring our coaches are telling you something about the way that we are doing things and the way we are approaching things. And like, I don't know how more clear of a sign there can be than like 4 different guys, whether it's Chase or Harder or Mason Noki or Dylan, 4 guys that have coached 12 and under teams for us are now professional coaches. and I'm not talking an 18U team or a 16 or even a 15. I'm talking 11U baseball or Mason 12U development team that most of those kids had no idea what they were doing. I don't know how much more clear it can be. But
and again, all those guys, like Louisa Couch, I'm going to play Louisa. Because Louisa and I were coaching the Baseball for All Traveling Academy team years ago that, again, was not very good. Right. And so all those guys and girls are very, very good, hard workers, no systems, no process. So, like, it's not, it's not simply that, like, Dylan coached the 11U Academy team in year 1. There's a lot more to it. I don't want to minimize the amount of like diligence and study and effort that they've all kind of
no question, right?
But to your point, it's not that Holly was coaching like an 18U team that won some big. They didn't win the Connie match,
right?
It wasn't that he proved his player development chops that way.
Right.
Coaching kids got hired by a pro team. What does that tell you?
And he took a 15U team last year that was not great.
Yep.
Just like admittedly, like there was, they were behind the curve. There was a lack of skill. They're all way better at 16 now.
Dude.
Because he got his hands on them at 15. Did they win a lot of games last year? They did not.
Yeah.
They did not win a lot of games at 15.
Yeah.
They're going to win. They're already winning. Because they're all way better than they were last year. And they have a much better shot to help their high school teams than a kid who was playing for a different org.
Yeah. Because again, that's the thing that you can be. You can be a good athlete and bad at this game, or you can be a bad athlete and bad at these games, and you can develop all those things if you take the time and make the choices to do so. Again, preaching to the choir. Thank you guys for listening to us regurgitate the same talking points over and over and over. It's never going to get old to me. Like, tell me the last time that the pro org hired a dad ball coach for winning a bunch of games.
Right.
Has that happened? I'll be waiting.
Yeah. And not one of those guys got hired by a win-loss record.
Right.
Because it wasn't good.
Right.
But I also can guarantee you that when they were interviewing, the pro teams didn't ask what their win or loss record was.
Yeah, it doesn't even come up.
Right. It was, what tools did you use?
Right. Yeah, what's the approach?
Right. What philosophically, like, how did you go about developing the players?
Yeah.
What did you do to utilize technology and this kind of player development in a team setting that we can take and literally plug and play into our DSL team down in the middle?
At scale.
Right, at scale. Like, we've taught you how to do this. You know how to do it. If you can do it with 11-year-olds, you can do it with DSL guys. That like I have experience in a team setting doing data-driven player development, and like 12U Johnny Daddy. Can't quite claim that.
Yeah, I mean, let me think about it. So, 100% of the Academy inaugural 12U team's coaching staff is now Pro Bowl.
So, I was thinking about this. Your son and the teammates that have been here have never been coached by anybody at Driveline Academy that didn't either already coach in Pro Bowl or now is coaching Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And like most of our kids, at some point, there was a touch point with a lot of those kids. Like, yes, Chase, I love you. Even though you didn't come on the podcast over the winter, we have to get you on the podcast.
Yeah. I was talking about that.
He was not just, yes, he was the head coach of that team. He worked with all the kids in the academy. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, he touched everybody in the academy. And that, having someone like that touch all of the kids in the academy, or like an Eric Kozak who played a large amount of professional baseball and stuff. Like, having guys like that have touch points with like all of our kids who understand how this is done and like were, I don't know, maybe undersized themselves and like needed the Driveline style training to get there themselves. It's pretty invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, because we have both, right? We have coaches who played at a really high level and were smaller.
Yep.
And we have coaches who played at a really high level who are giants. You know, it's like from Kozak to Curran Jacobs.
Right.
We got both.
Yep. And this isn't just, I do want to be clear, this is not just our academy teams, right? Like, you could be in Academy Online and your coach may have been Tyler Smith.
Oh, man, yeah.
Shout out Tyler. We're all very proud of you.
Yep.
Like, he is now a professional coach in the minor leagues. And your 8-year-old was getting programmed by him a month ago.
Yeah, Ty came up and he was like, thank you guys so much for the opportunity, yada, yada. It was like, man, it's not us. It's not us. Like, you worked your tail off. Did an exemplary job.
Right. And hopefully I'm not throwing things that he said to me out there without him wanting to say this to me, but like, I don't know if so sorry, Tyler, if you're mad at him saying this, but like, he's young. He's very young. This winter, he applied to as many teams as possible to get reps, to go through that interview process. He had no anticipation of getting a job. Yeah. Turns out having this on your resume is pretty attractive.
Sure.
And he's like, I threw a lot out there, didn't think anything of it, and then heard a bunch back. And it was just like, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going through these steps and see what happens and see how far I get. And like, now he's going to be on a minor league coaching staff somewhere. Yeah. It's like, that's difficult. That's not easy.
Yeah. So I think that's my ABCA wrap up. It's just, super proud of our guys. They're getting these new shots at Pro Ball this offseason. The fact that we are sending coaches that way, the same way that like the rest of Driveline that really fires me up. I think it says a lot about the quality of work that they're doing. And again, to what degree this approach is tacitly approved by MLB teams. It's not the same as, Joey's, 13U, elite gladiator travel.
Right. And I don't want to, there's a lot of travel ball dad coaches out there who you can find on the baseball key or baseball reference, right? Like they've got more at bats and more batters faced than I do at the professional level. And I'm not saying that automatically that makes you not a good coach. Like, you can learn a lot from being a minor league player or playing indie ball or whatever, and you can take that and take it to kids and do a wonderful job with it. It does not guarantee that you are going to be good at it.
Yeah.
So I if you've got a playing background and still don't follow our philosophy, there's a reason you probably are coaching a travel team and you're not professionally coaching, because those jobs are not as hard to get if you're a former pro player. But if you got a former pro player who's been coaching a youth team for a long time, there's probably a reason he's coaching that youth team.
Just because you play this game at a high level does not mean that you can coach children.
Some of the best coaches that I know did not play this game at a high level.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, and some of the best coaches that we regarded, like at a really, really high level, right? Like that's true up and down. Mm-hmm. And again, I understand like the parental thing about like, well, why wouldn't I want my kid to be taught music by John Coltrane? Why wouldn't I want my son or daughter to be taught guitar by Jimi Hendrix? Sure. I don't know that Jimmy would have been a great teacher.
Right.
I don't know that.
Did Michael Jordan ever coach? Don't tell your son I said that. He doesn't listen to the podcast, right?
He does. Yeah. He does.
He's so better. But that guy would have been a miserable coach.
Sure. I mean, his ownership tenure hasn't been particularly great. His ability to develop young players when he came back around with the Wiz wasn't particularly great. Kind of ruined Kwame Brown.
Kind of. I mean, Isaiah Thomas.
I know.
Right? Like, the professional sports are littered with, former Patrick Ewing, right? Like, former really good athletes being very bad coaches.
Yep.
Barry Bonds.
I was just going to say,
they're out there.
Yeah, and, listen to Barry talk about hitting, right? Does it sound the way that you would want anyone? He doesn't have a job in professional baseball. Maybe he doesn't want one. His tenure as a coach of professional baseball was not particularly long. And if you listen to the way that he talks about hitting nowadays, and you listen to the way that anybody that is going to be in contention for these type of jobs and be in demand, and the way that they approach skill development, the way that they approach systems, etc., it ain't the same, man. Tomato, potato.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm more than willing to admit that Barry Bonds is probably the greatest hitter that ever lived. Doesn't mean that he's the greatest teacher. These are discretely different skill sets.
Very different skill sets.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the second one, your best teaching is, well, this is how I did it.
Yeah.
Do it how I did it. Because I don't know how to teach you any better.
Why can't you just do Barry Bonds?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
You start with having Willie Mays be your godfather. That's step one.
Step one. If you can't get that one right,
then we're in trouble, man.
I mean, and Mark McGwire, not particularly great as a hitting coach.
It's professional sports are littered with them.
Yeah.
Littered with stories of guys that have been probably, well, not in Michael Jordan's case, but pretty good teammates and great players and good human beings. And that still doesn't translate to you being able to teach someone.
Yes. It's just a different way. So I think we can wrap.
Yeah.
But let's see. I had a good question for you. Movies on a plane? What'd you watch? Anything?
The inside of my eyelids.
Fair. All right.
On the way there though.
Yeah.
I did watch You Are What You Eat on Netflix.
How was that?
It was really good. Eye-opening, right? It's a twin study, which I want.
I did. Yeah, I saw that.
There's so much you can find out from a twin study.
Yeah.
But a twin study, they put one on an omnivore diet and one on a vegan diet.
Yeah.
And they were good diets, right? It wasn't like omnivore diet, go eat Wendy's.
Right.
It was a good,
two
good diets. Yep. They both have the same trainer, so they're doing exercise, so they try all these things, and it was really eye-opening, man, about what those different diets can do to visceral fat or things like that we don't always see. And I'm not saying I'm going vegan because I don't know if I can. But I don't, and maybe it's recency bias. I watched it within the last week, but I can see myself. To be clear, I watched it, landed. It was my birthday, and I went to a Brazilian steakhouse. But things didn't change immediately. But I can see myself like eating a lot, being willing to eat a lot more vegan things. Because like I had the same, where it's like you have to eat to get the correct amount of like protein or whatever. You need to eat way more if you're doing vegan than you do. And it's like, some people will struggle to eat volume, which totally fine. But I can see myself eating. I definitely pay more attention when I go to stores because there was this, not to freak anybody out, but there's like apparently I think Nora's like 25% is the acceptable level of like E. coli and salmonella that is in like store-bought chicken and beef. They're allowed to like. You can go like there was a thing where they went to a store and they bought a bunch of different types of meat and then put like it was literally called germ glow on it and then didn't tell people and had them prepare food with that. And then turn off the lights and did a black light and like E. coli and salmonella everywhere in the kitchen. And it's like it's like trace amounts, right? And they talk about like these large feed factories. Putting antibiotics in it a little bit, which like a little bit of antibiotics like helps kill the salmonella and things like that. But then on the back end, if I'm consuming a little bit of antibiotics every time I eat meat that I buy from the store, eventually these antibiotics, when I get sick, are going to be less effective on me.
Correct.
Because I've like had like a dose of them for a long. So like it was that's I don't think that's where you thought I was going to go with this question. But that's what I watched on the plane there. Was that and then on the plane back it was a 6 a.m. flight and I pulled an all-nighter I was immediately out. Shout out Matt Chris for getting me through the airport and I was immediately out and then woke up when we hit the ground.
Nice. I did let's see, what did I do on the way there? I did The Prestige.
Oh yeah,
because I never watched this. Like it's one Christopher Nolan movie that I never watched. So I finally broke down and watched that, and it was really good. I don't know that I loved it as much as some of the other Nolan movies that I love, but it's still really, really exemplary filmmaking. Saw Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman.
Okay,
so that's the one with McConaughey in the lead.
I did not watch that.
It's I think he's still trying to get back to like the Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels and what was the other one that came out right? He had 2 back to back that were really good. It was Lock, Stock, and I'm gonna punch myself.
I'm gonna be so mad.
You're the trivia guy. You're supposed to get this stuff. It was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Such a good movie too.
It's not Rock and Roll. Rock and Roll came out as like its 3rd.
Snatch.
Yes.
Snatch.
Yes, absolutely. So it's not as good at that, but it was fun. It was really good. What was the 3rd thing? I watched another movie while I was doing some work. What the heck? I don't know. But yeah, I was down for like a good. There's a certain type of movie that I don't mind watching on an airplane, and there's others that I can't do it.
Yeah,
I can't do it. Like they had the new Indiana Jones style Destiny, which I still haven't watched. I was like, I'm not going to watch that on a tiny screen. I just can't.
Yeah,
like I missed it in the theater, but like if I'm going to watch it, I'm going to watch the big screen at home because I got a big Indiana Jones guy.
Right. Yeah.
Like because I grew up in the '80s, of course I am. I got nothing else.
I also have nothing else.
All right. I promise you, we will do this next week, and both of our energy levels will be much higher because. Man, ABCA is it's such a wonderful experience, I think, to be around those coaches. Shout out to anybody that came up to either one of us and said you listen to the pod, say that you are like, you appreciate what we're trying to do. You've said a special FU to someone who takes shots at us. If you're any one of those 3 type of people, of which I had numerous come up to me at ABCA, I appreciate you.
And shout out to the people who walked up to the booth at ABCA just to have a conversation. Don't listen to the podcast, don't know a lot about us.
Yep.
We're open to having that conversation and hopefully learn and like are going to adopt some of our philosophies. And shout out to, I don't know, maybe anybody who did show up to our booth at ABCA and didn't say anything.
Sure. Shout out to the people that shout out to people that stay quiet. Shout out to you. Shout out to you because it's I tell you guys, it is hard to be a man of peace sometimes.
It's hard to not be petty.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to be, petty LaBelle. But I will not be petty LaBelle today. And
Just shout out to everybody that came up to booth, whether you talked to us or you didn't.
Yeah, whether you popped off about saying stuff and you just elected to stay quiet like a church mouse. Shout out to you. We will be back next week. More energy, more sleep. I don't know what else we're going to talk about, but we'll do this again next week. See you guys later. Thanks.